welcome to Concert Pipeline. That's Jen Schipple.
And that's Steve Jones.
That's where we're at, is it?
Did you just hear me say that 4 times?
Maybe 8. Yes. Yeah. You're being hilarious due to the fact that we are doing an in-person pod. Which is, a little bit of a rarity now, but we are doing it distanced in the back, and due to starting to do this through YouTube, right? We are recording it through Zoom. I need to have some distance there. So, as you can see, we have a little bit of distance here for this pod.
This is fantastic, and I'm trying really hard, Steve, to just focus on what you are saying virtually and ignoring what you are saying live
They're
because
two different
of the
things.
echo. Yep, and that's why I'm repeating myself just to fuck with you. So, Steve, it's great to have you here. I haven't seen you in forever. We were both on vacation. I haven't seen each other since we both got back, right? Last time I saw you physically was when you got kicked out of your house because of the raging wildfires.
Yeah, it has been a little while. The COVID and challenges and everything else has made it tough to get together, but we're doing it responsibly, right? So
yeah, we are. We've got the social distancing thing. We've got our equipment set up. This is a good space for us. There's no wind to transmit any viruses in case you just decide to sneeze in my general direction. But I've got to say, Steve, I do have one complaint.
What is your complaint?
My complaint is not that I haven't seen you in a while, because it really is good to see you again. However, you might as well not even be here, because I'm looking at you through the iPad, right? Even though you're like 6 feet away, I can't really concentrate on you because I'm focusing on the Zoom conference that we got going here.
Should I leave, or I brought pizza, and I thought that was a gesture of welcomeness, but apparently not.
It was fantastic, Steve. Thank you again so much for the pizza.
I will tell you as well that when not to interrupt your thought, but I did. When I was picking up the pizza, there was a homeless guy sitting outside, and I was going to go in the wrong door, and then he pointed me to the right one, and he's like, "Oh, can you get me a large soda?" And so I had already prepaid for the pizza online, which I had ordered before coming here. But what am I going to say? No. I guess that's a possibility, but they don't do fountain drinks at the pizza place anymore. So I bought the dude a 2-liter soda, which cost me like $4.50. Which is ridiculous for price for 2 liters of soda, but I did it for him, and he's like, "Oh, even better than I was expecting." So
I wonder how many of those 2-liter sodas he's got stashed away just for asking that question. He might know that they don't have regular sodas. He's like, "Oh yeah."
I know, he was playing me. He had a box of pizza too, so he probably talked someone into getting him a pizza at the same time.
Maybe.
And I was a soda guinea pig, but here we are. I want to say as well that we have a great artist on the program today. One that I've been a fan of for probably 15 years at least. And this is one of those nostalgia episodes, which I was really excited to get to do. It's an artist named Shawn Harris, and he's the lead singer of a band called The Matches. And they are big in the Bay Area. They've done a lot for the music scene in the Bay Area as well. And including, which we'll talk about, helping build shows at the iMusic House venue in Oakland that is no longer around, but it really defined a part of that generation, bringing a lot of bands local and touring into the area and giving them a venue to be able to perform. And they were that venue was one of the first to do live streaming shows as well. And so the Matches have been around for a long time. They were formerly a band called The Locals, and they put out their debut album, Yvonne Dahl Killed the Locals, which was one that I had on repeat a lot. And so getting to talk to Shawn, we talked for at least an hour, and then there's a little surprise at the end. Okay, I'll tell you, he pre-performed a song for the pod, which is my favorite song, and I was just fanboy the whole time. I loved it.
You must have nerded out, dude. You must have been in your element.
I did. It was really enjoyable, and
what a treat, huh? What a treat.
It was quite a treat. So thankful to that. Before we get to Shawn, I do want to ask you, Jens, about the newest member of your household, which is not a child, but instead of a fur baby.
I did. I hinted at this a little bit. I think, if I remember correctly, in the last pod, or at least maybe I was hoping I was going to do that, but I had something to share, but I didn't want to.
You brought him into the last pod.
I did. That's right. I did. Oh my God! See, it was such a long time ago since we did that.
It was a week.
Case in point. Okay, so I got the puppy the day after we got back from our trip to southern Utah when we did the canyons, and literally it's been like a week. It has been like a week, but it feels like it's been like a month. Seriously feels like it's been like a month, just because of all the stuff that's been going on with this little puppy. So this dog is now 9 weeks old, and he is a mix between a poodle, a Maltese, and a Yorkie. So he's pretty small, and I guess the parents had a three-way or something. Not quite sure how that works, but he is, quite frankly, a little demon, a little fucking demon dog. And you just met him live, right?
I did.
When you got here, and he doesn't seem like that. He seems like the sweet little adorable thing who would never cause anyone any stress, right? But there is a second side of him. Like, there's this personality, this alter, like a Jekyll and Hyde. He's a total Jekyll and Hyde. I'm sure most puppies are like that. But dude, it's exciting. It is so exciting to have a little puppy in your life, and it is a ton of work, Steve. And like I was telling you before, I just, going on the record here, I admire you for your amazing parenting skills, right? I'm just talking about a little puppy. You raised 2 fucking kids.
And a puppy.
And a puppy.
From
That's
the same age as
true.
yours, yes.
Your dog is much bigger, ended up being much bigger, right? But I mean, like, there's so many sleepless nights, and you're getting up all the time, to do the potty training, and you've got the treats, and you're trying to, get them to learn all these words and stuff. And there's been so much development in just 1 week that I'm like super excited about what this dog is going to turn out to be like. But dude, it's stressful. I'm sure most of the stress is sort of self-inflicted and completely unnecessary, because you want to do the right thing and you want to have the least amount of, drama in your life. So, potty training, of course, is the first thing you want to get out of the way. And you've always got to think, one step ahead of what the puppy's going to think. And you want to eliminate all those, bad behaviors, not necessarily by, punishing them, but just rewarding them for all the good stuff, and refocusing, redirection. And I'm sure kids are very, very similar in that respect, right?
I mean, with the kids, it's easy because you could just leave them in the cage all day, and then at the end of the day, let them out to go to the bathroom, and they're good, right? But with a dog, it's really harder. You have to pay attention. So
yeah, you know what? I take back all those things that I just said about you and your parenting. Forget the praise. But yeah, no, dude, seriously. I mean, I've never had kids, as you know, so I've always had a lot of sympathy towards the struggles that parents have to go through. I mean, so many people say, oh, poor kids, but but now I've got this perspective. It's like, fuck that, poor fucking parents. They have all these stresses going on in their lives, newborns is just adding on to that. And sure, kids give you a lot of joy and puppies give you a lot of joy, but man, how do you deal with the fucking stress? It's like you've got to sharpen those coping mechanisms, or just start drinking a lot, or I don't know, dude. I don't want to get too personal, but how did you survive?
Oh, I don't know.
The initial phases of raising a puppy and raising kids.
It's a challenge.
Remember?
Well, I got a refresher this past weekend when I watched my kid's brother, their mom's other kid. I watched all 3 of them together at their mom's house until late in the evening, and and changed diapers for the first time in years and everything, and it was just like, oh yeah, this is fun. I mean,
right.
it's doable, it's completely manageable, but it's just like, it's exhausting, and it, you you check your watch 1,000 times to say, okay,
Yeah.
is it bedtime yet? Is it bedtime? Because I just need a
Right.
few minutes,
Right.
alone time before.
Exactly. And it's so hard to get that, right? And
Mhm.
and all these things you just used to take for granted are such a struggle to get back. Like I used to, right before bed, just kick back and maybe watch an hour of, whatever show I wanted to watch. Those days are over, man.
Yeah, you're done, huh?
Those days are over. Dude, we've gone to the extent where this fucking puppy, and you've got to share some stories, man. I mean, let's just go all out, right? This little puppy eats everything off the floor, just like licks everything off the floor, right? And we try to keep the floor really clean. But it still finds everything, like hair. Like my wife's hair is really long. So it'll eat hair, right? Does the puppy's digestive system digest hair? No. It comes right out of the ass, just like it went into its mouth, like a long fucking noodle. So on one end, it's stuck in the poop, right? And then on the other end, it's stuck in his ass.
And you're just
So he
flossing
can't,
with it? Is that what you're doing?
yes. So you've got to grab the
Mhm.
hair and pull it out of its butt. Otherwise, it'll run through the house, freaked out that something is attached to it. And yeah, who wants that?
I mean, I've never had that, so
You've never had that happen?
no, that's a new one for me. So I don't know. I mean,
Okay,
there's
so
different challenges.
I'm assuming that you didn't have long hair back then.
Let's see.
And your wife at the time had long hair or short hair?
It started long and it got shorter.
Maybe that's why. Maybe she cut it off because she was sick of like pulling.
We never ran into that situation. I haven't heard of that. That's you're on your own with that one. I don't understand how a hair is going to weave its way. I mean, that sounds like a cartoon or something.
It
Like what is?
does. It doesn't even make sense. I don't get it. Like I'd love to talk to an ass doctor just to find out how the hair somehow straightens itself out in the large and small intestines and comes out like a straight noodle. I mean, you'd think it would be bunched up in a little ball.
And hair
But
can
no, it's like
break
fucking
too.
dental
So
floss.
I don't understand. But
I don't get it, dude.
I
But
see
anyway,
what you're
so
going
what
through.
my point is, that's just one of like many brand new experiences that I never thought I'd have when I was thinking about getting a puppy.
You're learning. It's fun.
Learning. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely fun. No regrets at all. I'm super excited. And I know that this time is like a puppy dad. I'm really gonna miss when it's over,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. But yeah, more adventures to come, and we look forward to hearing about it as it progresses. So.
Sweet.
Well, let's
All
bring in
right.
our guest, Jens.
Sounds good.
I don't want to wait any longer. Shawn Harris is here, and again, really awesome conversation. We had a lot of fun, and if you're a fan of the matches, you should tune into this interview because it's not only a glimpse to the past from the past, but into the future of for the matches as well. So, with that, I will bring in Shawn Harris. Hey, Shawn, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Steve?
Not too shabby. Not too shabby.
Let me just
You're not.
audio here. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. Yeah.
My audio to get you in my headphones. All right, let's try this.
How are we looking?
You're in my headphones now. Good.
Loud and clear. Yes.
Right
How's your day treating you?
It's going pretty good. It's going all right. Yeah.
Yeah. You're back in the Bay Area now, right?
I am. Yeah, I recently moved back up here. Just the beginning of about a year ago now, actually. Wow. Yeah, it's been a year. Yeah,
What was it that brought you back?
We moved to the coast, so yeah, I'm not exactly in the same area that I grew up in, but I fancied myself a surfer when I was a teenager, and recently have been getting back into it, basically relearning. So I'm a utter kook, but just got back from a little surf. It's been fun.
How often do you get out?
Just about every day. Me and my wife go together. Yeah.
Nice. That's good bonding, right?
Yeah, it's just about, the only thing that's keeping us sane during the lockdown, the pandemic and everything. Yeah.
And you have kids?
No kids.
No kids.
No.
Okay. I saw some pictures of you with kids, and and of course you got the
The world's children I'm like the uncle to the world's children. I make picture books. That's my day job now. I was always an illustrator. Started doing it with the matches, and then kind of pivoted from making album art for bands to making books for kids.
nice.
Pretty similar stuff. I didn't think the audience could get much younger than our teenage audience, but
You found a new audience, yeah. And being the world's uncle, not a bad place to be, because you can go home and not have to deal with distance learning or anything, all the bullshit that I'm having to deal with.
Yeah, man.
And other
Yeah.
people.
You got kids?
I got two. I got a 10-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son, and
You're here in the Bay also, right?
Yeah, I'm in Napa.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah, we're dealing with the fires, and it's just a mess. It's gross,
It's been a trying year, I think, for everybody.
And
Yeah.
things get stacked up, and you're
Okay.
okay.
Are they back in person learning, or
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah.
And and of course I got mixed feelings about that, right?
Of course, yeah, for sure.
Because I don't think it's time, but they're not getting what they need to from the distance learning, and that's really tough. So,
For sure.
I see them putting a lot of work into the districts, putting a lot of work into making sure it's done right, and so I'm hopeful that having the split will at least and having some in person learning will help and take some of the weight off of my shoulders. So
Right. Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about distance learning. We got lots of other good stuff to talk about.
That's usually the rest of my day. Yeah. I've been doing lots of Zoom visits with classrooms and stuff.
Oh, you are? How does that go? You play them songs and stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Put out a kids record earlier this year. I'm going to follow your lead into the actual podcast. I feel like
we're
I'm
good. It's just a conversation. It flows,
Cool.
where it goes. And yeah, a first cat in space ate pizza, right? So
yeah, that's it.
I was listening to it today, and I dig it. I think it'll be good. I'm going to share it with my kids. So
Right on, man. Right on.
See what they think of it. But yeah, tell me about that.
Well,
Since we're on the kids,
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, maybe it'll transition us back into the music world, because the beginning of in around February, March, somewhere around that time, when we were all kind of reeling from the big life changes that everybody was going through, with being cooped up in their houses and all the uncertainty, and all the kids were out of school. A lot of my music fans are parents now, and I also make books for kids. There is an interesting overlap where, like, a lot of parents are like, "Oh, I used to come to your shows, and now my kids read your books." It's kind of funny, but yeah, me and my childhood friend. We grew up in Castro Valley, a few blocks from each other. His name is Mac Barnett. He's an author. We decided to start trying to do a live cartoon over Zoom. Kind of testing the limits of this technology that everybody was thrown onto. He started a book club show. It's called Mac's Book Club Show. He was doing it every day of the week, just to kind of fill an hour for all these parents that were like, how are we learning? What are we doing? And so he started this kind of, this show where he would read a book and have guest authors and illustrators come on. So we started a weekly segment where we would do cartoons, because, you got to watch cartoons on Sunday. And so that was my installment. I was like the king of cartoons from Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yeah.
And we started this cartoon called The First Cat in Space Ate Pizza. We thought it was just going to be a one-off, and then the next week we'd do something completely different. But we started getting all these emails from kids wondering what was going to happen next. So it ended up being a series of cliffhangers. There were 12 episodes that sequentially went week by week up until the end of June. And I think, it was part of this this shift in learning at home and everything. We got a lot of teachers and librarians pointing their kids like, hey, do this at lunchtime. It's sort of educational, and I would do these cartoons live. I would basically, it was like paper cutouts that I would move in front of my camera and move my phone around and basically film it, and we would do all these voices. But the musical tie-in there was that each episode featured a song. It was kind of me aping some of my favorite artists. It was like, since we're doing this stuff all alone, I was like, oh, it'd be great to have a David Bowie song right here, but obviously we don't have the rights, so let me just sing it like Bowie. And it was just this sort of fun, getting to play dress up in some kind of the sounds of Queen and David Bowie and the Beatles and Devo and stuff like that. And of course the kids that are watching it don't get the references, but their parents all seem to be very amused. And
that's the best kind of cartoon or kids program, right? Because you see the movies, like, okay, my kids were watching Cat in the Hat the other day with Mike Myers, right? Yeah. And so I wasn't watching with them, but I do remember having seen it, and being like, okay, there's some, there are a good amount of adult references in here that will go over their heads, but which will kind of get that adult audience, interested while, entertaining the children as well. So that's the way to do it,
Right.
Yeah.
So we put out an album at the end of at the finale. We put out the album on Spotify. You can search The First Cat in Space, 8 Pizza. The band is called Shawn and Mac. Those are our names.
Yeah, keeping it simple.
And it's, actually it's turned out to be an ongoing project. We're working on more. We have a mailing list, and we send kids out printable things that they can print at home and cut out our characters and make their own live cartoons. And it's turned into a really fun community. People are all looking for something to do with their kids at home. So it's just, it turned into a neat community. We launched a bunch of lines of merch, and we were able to donate a lot of the proceeds to indie bookstores that were also flailing at that time. And we raised with our fans, we raised over $20,000 for a foundation called Bink, which helps indie bookstores, pay their bills in this time, get back on their feet, and hopefully stay in business so that we still have our local communities when we come out of this, and we're not just a bunch of Walmarts and Targets left.
It's going to be tough, right?
Yeah.
We've got to do everything we can. And you see, music venues struggling, and, just, it started for me with Slims, right? I know. Right afterwards. And obviously that was struggling for, before COVID.
Yeah.
But just seeing Slims close and remembering all the good shows that had been to there, it was heartbreaking,
I know.
God, I remember, I think
I went to my first show there.
Oh, that was your first concert. What was it?
Yeah. First show was Zebrahead.
Okay.
Opening for, oh God, I want to say
Goldfinger or something? I don't know.
No, I want to say, okay, so the lineup was Zebrahead was the first of 3. Second of 3 was Papa Roach.
Okay.
And and the headlining band, I want to say, was some much lesser band. I want to say it was a band called Remy Zero.
Okay.
If anybody Googles that bill, I might be wrong. The headliner was forgettable. We were like, wow, Zebrahead was amazing. And then Papa Roach was an utter meltdown. They didn't finish their set. Their bass player, I remember, destroyed the drum kit. It was intense. They played for about 5 or 10 minutes. But it was the cool, it was so punk rock to me, being out of my parents' house, for the first time to see a show.
I think my first show there, it wasn't my first.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt. We had to leave.
Good.
I don't remember the headliner because we had to get on BART.
Oh God, had to make it right.
We had to get back to Castro Valley. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my first one there was the Used and Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, these are type of shows that you'd get there back in the day, and
That's
it's just
crazy.
like,
Yeah, they ended up being like, amphitheater bands by the end
yeah,
of their careers. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
And so, I mean, so many great memories over the years, and it's just like, oh gosh,
Who headlined that Taking Back Sunday?
it was the Used, I
Oh,
think.
really? Okay. Yeah.
I want to say it was a co-headlining tour, but I think the Used played after Taking Back Sunday, and
Cool.
yeah, I remember Adam being up on the balcony and sitting next to him after we interviewed Taking Back Sunday at that show, actually, I think so. Long time ago, but
Yeah. What do you remember the year?
yeah, it had to have been no, no, okay, I don't exactly, but let's say 02,
02, something.
03.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, tell all your friends, of course,
Yeah.
for Taking Back Sunday on that
Yeah.
tour. But I mean, that was one of the shows that helped form my musical taste. Like
For
it's
sure.
really my developments there. So,
Yeah.
but seeing your bands also. I mean, like I remember going to shows. I mean, let's go back now. Here's the segue.
Yeah.
I'm
there you go.
Musicast, Shawn. Like seriously, like going to shows that I Musicast back in the day, and I mean, those shows were so unique and cool, and you were a big part of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about a Musicast and how you brought together L3 and kind of where that came
Yeah.
from.
The origin story there is, we were kind of we had graduated from high school, and started playing around the Bay Area. We were also trying to like remain a band as our guitar player left our band and went to college. I stayed in the Bay Area and enrolled in some classes at the Academy of Art in San Francisco. But I didn't really have a full load, nor did I have ambitions to finish school. I was like kind of trying to make the band work and keep all the guys in the area. Luckily, our drummer, who would probably have been the first one to go off to school, was a grade lower than us. So I kind of had a free year to convince his parents that we could be a real thing. Meanwhile, Justin, our bass player, was at Santa Cruz, so he was kind of driving back for the weekends and playing shows. And so we were like, any lead we could get, just playing around the Bay Area, our first shows, and trying to figure out our sound and what we were all about. And at some point, it became clear that we needed to kind of we were just out of high school ourselves, and a lot of the venues we were playing, we were the youngest people at, and we were like trying to, bars were letting us come in and play, but we weren't really appealing to kids or adults that were a few years older than us. And we started playing some high schools, and we would sell so many CDs there, and we're like, oh, like our audience is like our age or a little bit younger. Where do you play for that audience? And it was just really the Gilman that was doing at least consistent all ages stuff for a really kind of DIY audience. We obviously weren't big or good enough to get booked at Slim's or any of the other all ages clubs. We didn't have the clout to get in there. So, and we weren't, we tried to get into the Gilman, but we weren't quite, there were gatekeepers there. And in all honesty, we hadn't worked out the kinks. We were just still kind of finding our footing, playing kind of a hybrid of punk and ska. And there were some teen centers in the North Bay, in the South Bay, in Los Gatos, and up in Petaluma and stuff that we started getting some all ages shows at. But we really couldn't find anything around home. We were like, God, there's so many kids in Oakland. We sold so many CDs to them, and we started playing outside of high schools. And just as the high school got out, and just throwing our CDs and flyers and selling CDs out of backpacks and stuff. And we're like, we got to find a place to play around here. And there was a local venue that we booked a show at. The show was a failure. The venue was booking their own stuff, and maybe 20 people turned up. It was just that kind of classic kind of pity party for the local band's friends and family. And we booked the show with them, and after the show we convinced them to let us be like, what do you call it, produce a show, to let us throw our own show. We were like, we can do it. You just got to let us book a bunch of bands that are like our age, that you're going to think are crap because we're just figuring out how to play, but we can actually bring kids because we're kids, just let us basically throw a party. And they allowed it. We had to cut all kinds of corners. We had to like beg our parents to work the door for us because the overhead for security and people at the door was like going to be way beyond our break-even point. And so we managed just barely to get like 100 people there, which was their threshold for, if you get 100 people, we'll let you throw a second one. And then we went back out and employed that tactic of playing outside of shows and outside of high schools as they got out. We would even run through the halls of local high schools, throwing flyers everywhere. And we did that for 3 weeks until the next show they let us throw. And the show sold out. And it was a bunch of local bands, and there wasn't a headliner, but it was just a bunch of kids bands, and kids showed up and they were like, oh, cool. There's no, there were adults there. There was the staff of the venue, but they were just sort of like, oh, okay. And then there were our parents helping at the door, which actually was a little embarrassing because we were like, welcome to our punk show. Here's my dad at the door taking your ticket. But it actually worked out kind of nicely in that regard. We weren't anywhere as cool or as punk rock as Gilman, but wary parents driving to into Oakland to drop their kids off from like wherever, from Pleasanton or from all over the Bay. Kids were coming from all over the Bay. A lot of kids that went to school in Oakland, but like their parents would get out and be like, is this legit? And then they would see our parents at the door and strike up a conversation, be like, oh, cool. Okay. We'll be back to pick them up at 11 or 12 or whatever. And it worked out. So we were actually able to make a place where, actual high school kids were allowed to go out until midnight every other week, and it just became a thing. No matter who we booked, kids would show up, and sometimes honestly the bands were terrible, but then also touring bands started wanting to play a second night in the Bay Area. We convinced them. We were like, oh, cool, you're playing Slim's. After you sell out your show at Slim's, you can drive 15 minutes across a bridge and play another show, have an entire day off, and not have to drive all the way down to Orange County and play an entirely separate show that you don't even have to draw anybody to and make new fans across the Bay. And they were like, really? And we were doing well enough that we could give them their guarantees. And so by that time, we had met a number of bands that we started reaching out to that were kind of mid-sized bands. The Plain White Tees, they hadn't had their hit with like, hey, they're Delilah yet. They were, they were still an indie kind of power pop band. And from Chicago, we started just reaching out to bands outside of our area. We got a van. We said, hey, we'll give you a show in Oakland if you give us a show in Chicago. We had met the manager of the Real Big Fish from Orange County, and we started talking to them, and they came up and played our show. Then through that circle, other kind of like power pop punk kind of Warped Tour bands, Sugar Cult and Zebrahead actually ended up playing our show too. I want to say,
did the Format play?
The Format played.
They
Yeah.
did. Okay.
Yeah. We a bunch of really great Bay Area bands kind of became that scene. And then as we started touring, because we would trade our show for other shows, we started touring, and there was a really great local scene with like Local AM would headline those shows. The KGB and Solomite would do big shows there. And like, yeah, I can't claim like all of that, but basically we convinced the venue to let us do that. And then all of those shows just started going off for a period of 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years in there. It's sort of eventually we kind of outgrew it and started coming back to play Slims. The venue just sort of couldn't handle the level of bands that we started being on tour with there. But we remained great friends with them, and I think that you know, the scene sort of ran its course there. But for a while, like, you could go and see really good local music there almost every week. Yeah.
And you mentioned Plain White Tees, and I mean, I interviewed them a couple months before COVID, and we talked about on MusicCast too. And you know, I know for you guys, I mean, they kind of took you under their wing as well and brought you out to Chicago, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so was that your first kind of?
I don't remember. I want to say that they might have reached out to us and said, "Hey, we heard that you guys book a venue." And we were like, "Ooh, cool!" But that was the first relationship that we were like, "Oh, we have something of value to trade with bands. I think we can put together a tour through this kind of leverage that we have here, being able to put bands from out of town on a bill that's sold out." Because when you're on tour and you're a small band and you don't have radio support or label support even, it means so much to be able to show up into town and in front of 300 fans. You know, it's actually kind of rare. You end up most nights on tour as a band that does well in your small town but is trying to tour. It's not glamorous. You're playing for 20 or 30 people.
Yeah.
Oftentimes the bartenders and people that have no intention of seeing live music. So those tours can be really rough. So bands would, like, we were kind of, I think, a star for a few years there on a lot of people's tour routing. Yeah.
And so at what point for you guys did you guys, you know, start to see fans, you know, and people, you know, concert goers in different locations, you know, recognizing the matches, recognizing your music?
Yeah, well, you know, it kind of worked, like, we immediately got, like, going to Chicago and playing to the Plain White Tees fan base. You know, they put us probably higher on the bill than we deserve to be. In a 4-band bill over there, you know, we didn't open. We probably played second the first time we went out there, which was a huge favor because we drew nobody, you know. But, you know, when you have a local band that's popular, kind of ushering you in, telling their fans, hey, make sure you get there for the second band and stuff, like, it goes a long way. So Chicago pretty quickly became a really solid, almost hometown-esque fan base for us because of the Plain White Tees. And I think the same is true for them in the Bay Area. They immediately got a lot of fans and could come here and play shows on their own when we were out of town. I think because of that. So yeah, it would kind of sort of the camaraderie. It was very word of mouth, you know. I think fans at that time looked to the bands that they liked to kind of be the tastemakers and book bands. You know, you kind of knew if you were going to a show that was specifically booked by a band that the opening bands were sort of, you know, their picks for you to listen to were some of their favorite bands. It was a cool period. You know, I don't know if I'm sure it continued, but we sort of, once we signed with Epitaph Records, we sort of kind of and started going on Warped Tours and stuff. We sort of grew past that sort of small word of mouth level. But I got to say, you know, it might have been my favorite. It felt like the most, you know, it felt genuinely kind of owned and run by the musicians and the fans at that level. Not that it was less so later on, but there were more barriers between, you know, there were at a later level, you know, a lot of times booking agencies or labels were like, we need this band to go on tour. They've got, you know, there started to be more influences. We started touring with more bands that we weren't in love with, or that were just like, there's a sort of tenuous relationship between us and, you know, I don't know, From First to Last or something like that. We don't really share the same fans, but we're on the same label and they're nice guys, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
And so talk to me a little bit about, you know, Yvonne Dahl, Killing the Locals, and kind of, you know, your approach to that. And you mentioned Epitaph, right? You know, I mean, because one of the things that I really liked was that, you know, you got to keep the album when you brought it to Epitaph. It wasn't you went to the label and then you made the album. You made the album the way you guys wanted it to you know, come across, and then the label kind of was supportive of it, right?
Yeah. That was pretty special. That was actually also the reason why we got back together 10 years later as well, because the rights to the record reverted back to us. We had full ownership of it again. So basically Epitaph did a license of our first record, a 10-year license. So that was sort of our whole reason for getting back together. We met up, our drummer, who kind of pays the most attention to the business side of the band, said, you know, he was like, so I don't know what to do about this, but this record belongs to us. I don't know if we need to do anything. And we're like, oh, well, Epitaph was never interested in doing vinyl. And I kind of stayed, you know, as music has moved more and more digital. It's been digital throughout my whole music purchasing career from Napster to now. But as it's moved more digital, you know, I've remained a collector of my favorite stuff. And, you know, vinyl is kind of the coolest way to keep the art and display it, and, you know, and to listen to it sometimes too. Yeah. But yeah, that's the whole reason we got together, because we got that record back. So that's a special kind of, I think, rare sort of situation. And I guess another cool thing that happened from that was the two main producers that we worked on that record with, this guy named Matt Radozovich and a guy named Mike Green. One of them was a friend from a local band. Another guy was a kid that was a couple years younger than me in high school. And they were just like kind of the music geeks that loved the gear side of things, you know, and had early versions of like Cakewalk or Cubase and an interface and like a couple preamps and a couple microphones. And they were those guys who had the gear, and we did the record with them and spent, you know, hours and hours of unpaid time with those guys making that record. So it was really cool to be able to you know, to have a legitimate big label like Epitaph, big independent label, kind of give credence or a stamp of approval to both our work and their work. And both of those guys are still full-time producers, songwriters working right now, which is cool that, you know, again, like their career isn't because of us, but entirely. But it was neat to be able to like kind of have a crew and kind of come up with our crew, and sort of everybody kind of charged the goal line per se, from the Bay Area, and kind of got careers out of it. You know, their careers are probably even, I mean, are longer lasting than ours being band members too. So I'm proud of those guys, and their work has just like gotten better and better. Yeah.
So let's talk about Bleeding Audio, the documentary that came out. You know, I mean, that I watched it a couple weeks ago, and God, it was just like a trip down memory lane, you know, for me. And so I'm sure for you, I mean, much the same, right? I mean, times 100, obviously, but
for better or worse, yeah.
right. I know, but that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? It's a
Yeah.
story. I mean, so how much of that documentary were you involved with? What was kind of your takeaway of, from the documentary's existence?
Yeah. I mean, there were hours and hours of footage left on the cutting room floor, so that we had from the time that we decided we were going to do the reunion shows, and those started selling out, and because we didn't know if anybody was going to actually want to go see us at Slim's 10 years later. It's just like it felt like this could be like a big nostalgia, whatever, who cares. But those shows sold out, and we kept adding shows, and they kept selling out. And around that time, Chelsea proposed that she start shooting us. She was like, I think, let me just start shooting this. She was doing a bunch of documentary work. We had met her years before. When she was just like a film student in college, and had asked for access to do a final project on the matches and get access to a couple shows. So we had known her from that time, and by the time we were doing these reunion shows, actually she had started dating our bass player at that point. So she was like in our circle, and she was like, let me just film you guys. Come on. And we were like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And then she started talking about it being a documentary, and we were like, I mean, this is exciting for us, but I don't know if anybody's going to really care. But she kept on asking for access, and getting bigger and bigger cameras started showing up in the backstage areas and stuff. We're like, oh, and by the time we were going to Australia, there was a little crew that she was going with. She had put together a Kickstarter, and like had gotten backing and funding. And I mean, the whole time I'm like, that's cool that Matches fans are funding this film. That's kind of amazing. That's awesome. But like, I can't promise you there's gonna be a story here. I don't intend to pick up a heroin habit or die young.
Right.
Like, I don't know if this is gonna
How does it end? Yeah.
a documentary story per se. But watching it back, like, they found a story, and they got a lot of. I didn't know that they were going to be able to get that much archival footage too. So, I mean, it's hard for me to view it like impartially. I'm like utterly embarrassed seeing old footage of myself like doing really earnest impressions of Tim Armstrong, like, like really trying to like sound way more punk than I was. But I don't know. I it's hard to watch yourself on screen, but it's cool. I'm kind of humbled that people want to watch it, and the reception seems to have been pretty good so far too. So they've got some more online premieres, obviously. So we did a secret show after the first premiere, when they premiered it at the Bay Area Film Fest in San Jose. We just did SF Doc Fest. They just did SF Doc Fest, but we premiered it in San Jose first, and we did a secret show afterwards.
Was it live
at a pub down the street? Yeah. Okay. So this is like honestly the last time I was out of my house for 6 months. Yeah. It was crazy, and everybody was there, and we were all sort of like, it was just, everything happened so fast there. But it was that one weekend where everyone was still out, but we were like shaking hands with our elbows. Yeah. But this is pre-masks, like nobody had masks yet. it was that weird week where we
Yeah.
were kind of figuring out life was going to change, but we were like, but how is it going to change? And then like, yeah, the next day it was like, don't leave your house. And we're like, whoa. So yeah, we actually were able to premiere it there and surprise all the fans with the show. And that was awesome. It was a sold out theater, and it was about 2/3 full. So that'll tell you about how there was about 1/3 of the people that were like, I'm kind of uncomfortable leaving my house.
This COVID thing seems like it might be real.
Yeah. So so they're doing more online stuff. It's obviously a weird time to put a film out, but film festivals everywhere are kind of picking it back up and going with it. And but it's kind of cool because with the online premieres, I think a lot of people that are not in the Bay Area, a lot of people across the country and internationally are able to see the film too, which is kind of a untold bonus, because we otherwise, there's, I guess with festival runs, there's always 6 months or 8 months or a year when nobody but the geographically lucky can see the film. So that's nice. I know the fans had been waiting for this. We did for the Kickstarter backers, for some tier of Kickstarter backers, we did a show, I think 4 years ago, was one thing that we agreed to. We agreed to, a number of things for like the Kickstarter tiers and everything. So yeah, it's I guess, it takes forever to put together a movie, but they did a really good job with the archival stuff too. I never thought I would see a video of me in a backwards visor and a Hawaiian shirt. I thought I had burned all of those.
No, some stuff you can't get rid of,
Oh, man. Oh, no.
It happened. You got to own it, right?
I guess
so.
Yeah.
You feel it was a pretty accurate representation overall of, the matches, story kind of looking back?
Yeah. It's it's interesting seeing, of course, when I was out in the living in a trailer, when me and my wife just moved into a trailer and we're just traveling around the country for 2 years, like I made no connection in my head between that and sort of the fallout ending of the matches and stuff. But seeing it in the film, I'm like, oh yeah, I really did want to distance myself kind of from that life and some of those people, and nobody in the band, but I think it's fairly clear we had a pretty big falling out with our manager in the film, and he was a pretty controlling force. Like I kind of tend to like almost omit him from stories, I find. Like when you're asking about iMusicCast, I say we, meaning the band, but like also we had a manager that was able to convince. He was a local guy. He was in his 40s. He was able to also help convince the local venue, like, hey, like, let my band play here. And, I think that he would have like put up collateral, which would be like, his car keys and a check, like a blank check or something like that for the first show we got to do there. So yeah, it wasn't all us, but he ended up being like a pretty kind of souring force. And then kind of I don't know if I should give spoilers, but
sure,
the kind of the crux of the film is sort of us, or the climax is sort of us finding out that none of our songs had been registered. Basically a source of income that we thought was not a source of income for other bands. It would have been actually a sustainable source of income for us.
Do you think that would have been enough to keep the matches going? Like,
yes,
where do you sit with that?
Yes. I think it's another, creatively, I wonder if how many more records we might have made, or if the creative avenue would have stayed open. But I do know, so we, out of out of the 3 records of songs that we had out, excuse me, there was one song that had been registered, and the money that we had made off of that song was Chain Me Free. The money we had made off of that song, we were under the impression that that was our entire catalog.
That was everything.
Yes. And we were like, well, hey, that's not, I mean, that's why we thought if there was $0 coming in, we would have been like, what? But it was actually like, you know, once it's split between 4 guys and there's a manager's cut and everything, and everyone's trying to like pay rent or stay on the road or whatever, it goes fast. But it was a decent amount of money was coming from Chain Me Free. Now, mind you, we were funneling all that back into trying to stay on tour and everything. And it was just that one song. And we were like, wow, it is tough to be a band. But, you know, if we had, you know, that times, you know, that was one of our bigger songs, but we had by that time, you know, 6 or 7 other songs of that kind of caliber, plus all the rest of the catalogs kind of adding up in the background. It would have, we certainly would have finished an album 4, probably an album 5 also. We would have at least toured. I mean, touring is tough, don't get me wrong, but it can be sustainable if you are able to book it sustainably. We were really spinning our wheels. We had to tour to generate a baseline income, but we had to be on tour all the time as well. So it was, you know, we were just working so hard. And if we could have, you know, had a little bit of time to get an apartment, even if it was just, you know, one for the whole band, even if we could have moved out of our parents' houses, if we could have had some time to like grow up a little bit, like probably like, you know, I was doing a lot of art at the time, so have a little space to do the side projects that you need or want to keep you sane, and have a little time to, you know, grow up and have relationships with people that aren't in your band and stuff. Like I think that there would have been some more sustainable years for sure. Yeah.
And so as you know, I mean, kind of the part of the sense of what I get from you, Shawn, is that, you know, you're pretty modest. And I mean, and not just you, but kind of the band as a whole also, right? I mean, it really seemed like you didn't expect, you know, the reunion shows to sell out, you know, and and you know, and you know, and this documentary to do, you know, really well, and kind of to be really, you know, a positive force and everything. And so, kind of looking at that, like, you know, do you see any, you know, future with the matches, you know, as a whole? I mean, and I know you guys did the Zoom video, you know, which was really cool. Do You Belong? You guys did that. Which was awesome. But what does that look like, you know, from your perspective, knowing that there's that fan base? It's still there, you know.
It is still there. Yeah, we did the reunion show we did the reunion tour for all 3 of the records on their 10-year anniversary. So we got to get together, you know, 6 years with 2 years in between. Yeah. We had a lot of fun doing that, and it's, you know, I love the guys in the band, and it was a great excuse to get back together, but it's also a great excuse to get on stage and see those fans. You know, I don't know. I know so many of our fans personally, so it's just so interesting to see everyone growing up, and yeah, it was really neat. It was really fun. You know, I'm trying to like parse out how much I want to say. You know, probably if the film stuff was doing more live things, we had planned on showing up. Sorry, I keep on touching a live guitar chord here.
You're good.
I had planned on, you know, we had planned on going out and playing some more premieres in person. So it's not exactly the same on Zoom. but I'm glad people are enjoying the film. You know, we didn't have anything like, you know, we weren't using the film to
No.
the film was its
Yeah.
own thing. We weren't using it to promote anything on our end. However, we had been working on, before pre-COVID, we had been working on some songs. We did like a 2-song 7-inch a couple years ago. The main single was called "Life of a Match," and you know, it was just a limited edition 7-inch, but that sold out, and that was fun to do. And so I kind of thought, oh, maybe we'll do something like that again, and actually ended up writing just like a bunch of songs in my attempt to write 2. There's something about you know, this kind of pre 40 but kind of midlife, like, I don't want to call it a crisis, but there is something that I'm like, there's some kind of angst that I'm feeling in recent years that feels very similar to the kind of headspace I was in when I was trying to get out of my parents' house. I think some of it came from me and my wife bought a house in near Joshua Tree in California, in Southern California, and we were living out there, and we kind of, you know, honestly, we kind of made a nest. We were trying to get pregnant and have a kid, and we ended up running into all kinds of fertility issues, going to all kinds of doctors, spending all kinds of savings on that stuff, and it was really hard, and it was really trying. And at the end of it, we kind of had to escape our own lives. We kind of picked up. That's another reason why we came up here to the Bay. My wife took a job up here, and within a week we had left and found some renters to rent the place. But we had planned to be there for years, and then all of a sudden we were like, we gotta go. Just can't be in this nest anymore. It's not working for the reasons we thought it was going to be. But something about, I think, needing to get out of that house felt very similar to needing to get out of my parents' house. And I ended up writing a slew of songs, and I sent them to the guys. This was like maybe around the beginning of the year, maybe around this time last year. I sent them to the guys, and we started collaborating online and made plans to get together. And then of course the world fell apart. So we're sort of, we've got some stuff, and I hope we can get together and make a record. I don't want to overpromise. It's obviously a weird time to try to get people together in a room. We're sending a lot of ideas back and forth via email, but something about that doesn't feel like, well, that I know
it's not the same. Yeah.
No, you can make a record that way, but I think if we really want it to sound like the Matches, it's gonna take all of us getting together. So, you know, maybe in a post-vaccine world, whenever that happens, we can make good on that and do a tour and play some favorites and pepper in some new songs and annoy people with that.
Yeah, hey, I love it. That's great. Yeah. So a couple more questions. I want to ask you particularly about Australia, because you moved to Australia for a period of time also.
Mm-hmm.
Like what was it that took you to Australia, and tell me about how it was living there.
Well, my Australian experience was, I think, also somehow a reaction to my experience in the Matches. I met a band that we toured with over in Australia, kind of maybe the Plain White Tees of Australia. They were called something with numbers, and their singer was named Jake Grigg, and we had toured with them in Australia, and we brought them over here to the States as well. And me and Jake really hit it off. And when the Matches kind of whole thing fell apart, there's a bit of a theme here. You might notice that like I just kind of run from my problems.
It sounds like
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not your therapist here, but I mean, I could you could discover it. That's cool.
Yeah, so I was like, what's the farthest place from California that I can get?
That's pretty far, man. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty far.
No, moving to Australia kind of set me free in a number of ways. One of them being, you know, the matches were, you know, we were kind of an underground band that we would do really, our shows would do really well when we came and toured in Australia, but, you know, we play to like slim size audiences. We were by no means like a big commercial band there. So I was virtually kind of unknown. Not that like fame was a big problem in the States either, but like people there had very little like preconceived notion of what kind of music I could or should be making. And I was like kind of really wanting to experiment with some like kind of more self-production techniques and I was just getting my legs under me, like transitioning from GarageBand on a laptop to Logic and like figuring out how to do what we had always relied on other producers to help us achieve. And my buddy Jake was doing the same thing. So it was this sort of collaboration where we're kind of learning to be producers of ourselves. And Australia was a cool market where like we could sign a record deal still because they were kind of lagging 4 or 5 years behind the music market in America, which had become very risk averse, and there's no way that we would have been able to, you know, get any sort of a budget. And when I say budget, we didn't need a budget for our recording gear, but more to pay rent while we were recording records, you know. So there were still some deals to be made in Australia. We went and signed to a label over there, just basically based on the clout of two guys from medium bands coming together to make a somewhat super duo over there. Yeah. I was just kind of running from my problems, also trying to figure out new skills that would hopefully take me to the next phase of whatever happened in music. And I was also able to kind of experiment musically with like less kind of like punk rock oriented sounds. Still play guitar, but I always had like a real sweet spot for like Bowie and Prince. And we got to, you know, I got to try on some of those sort of moves on the guitar and on the voice and stuff in a way that, you know, maybe coming off of a Matches project here in the States, fans might have been a little bit more like, can you please play punk rock again? But like over there, it didn't really matter. And we ended up with a lot of Matches fans. There was still kind of a punk rock energy to what we were doing, but it was no longer, you know, I would no longer call it pop punk or punk music. So at that time, it was really a palate cleanser. It was really fun. We got a record deal. Yeah. And you know, what a lazy international travel that is, you know. You're not learning a new language. You don't get all the stress of like, oh, how do I buy cheese without looking like an idiot?
Right.
All the words you know still work, but it feels like an entirely different planet as well in many ways. It was fun. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to ask you about Warped Tour, and you know, I mean, we could talk about Warped Tour for an hour easy, I'm sure, but
sure.
But really, just I guess at the stem of it, what were some of the biggest takeaways or some of the most memorable experiences that you had on that tour? How did you grow from Warped Tour? Because it's such a beast, you know, of a tour.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it's what an organizational feat Kevin Lyman pulled off there. Yeah. It's insane. My most vivid memories, I guess the most trying times, but like also the sort of the times I'm most proud of are the first year we did it, when we were a nobody band that nobody outside of the Bay Area had really heard of, and we scored a spot on a Warped Tour, and they've got all of the bands on the main stages have professional drivers, and even the big side stages, they're all in buses, and these guys the drivers of those buses are paid to sleep in the day and drive all night. Of course, we're out in the hot sun, just getting burnt to a crisp all day, and making sure enough of the band is like staying hydrated and not getting drunk so that they can drive all night
take turns, right? Yeah,
to the next venue. But at the same time, you're like also kind of, especially that year, you're a kid in a candy shop, like just in terms of, oh my God, like that was Tim Armstrong, and like, whoa, there goes Billy Joe from Green Day, and like just like all of these, like, what, are you kidding me? And you're in the same space as them, and you're really having to check yourself and not like totally fan out. But you're like in line next to Mike Durant scooping out russet potatoes out of a dish, and it was like that was just such a surreal experience. Also, just like on the verge of sleeping at any time, and it's hot, and you're absolutely homeless. So you're living
one city to the next to play a 30-minute set,
in a van. Yeah, it was so unglamorous, but like exactly what you would imagine like punk rock bands should be doing too. It was great. In subsequent years, we were like, I think the next time we did it, 2 years later, we split a bus with a band, and by that time we had signed to Epitaph, and so there was a little bit of a budget to work with, and we're like, that's where you spend it, and like that is where you should spend the budget. Oh my God, yeah, like you can actually sleep, and there's air conditioning, and I think we probably played much better shows, but given those circumstances, but then it just turns into like, then it's just kind of normal, not normal. Like the big feat is the fact that you get all those buses to go to the same places, and that the organization is amazing there. And that kids get to go out and see all of their favorite punk bands in one day, like kind of amazing. But yeah, the first year we did it, oh my God, I don't think I could do that twice. There were some bands that were like kind of lifer van bands.
Yeah, first year style. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
yeah. Yes, exactly. And like, man, much respect to them. Like that's.
Yeah, like we did our time. We got that out of the system.
I was by no means like under any delusions of becoming rock stars and like moving past the Warped Tour or anything like that. But like, I also am not so punk that I can just
say we'll do this year over year.
With 6 guys and barbecue and drink beer every night, and then follow professional drivers 9 hours. it's incredible.
You made it through it.
You kind of in order to like pull that off, you kind of need one guy that's on the wagon that's got his chip. It's like, he's your driver, man. There's got to be one AA dude.
And you're like, hey, thanks, you took one for the team. Appreciate it. But yeah. Oh, good times. And so one of my last questions would be, really being from the Bay Area, and we talked about, some of these venues and like Slims and everything, but I want to know, what were some of the most memorable concerts locally that you've been to, like where, they not performing even, but like as a music fan, what were some of the best shows you've been?
Sure. Okay. Well, let me just go in the order that they are coming to mind. The first one, I don't know why. The first one I remember is Locale M, playing at what was that place called up in there was the Teen Center in San Rafael. It might have just been called the San Rafael Teen Center. The Verge? Was it the Verge? It might have been the Verge. Anyway, Locale M playing there. They put out this EP called the Characters EP, and that was like, I don't know if you remember that band or anything.
I do, yeah.
It was like a 6-song EP. All the songs joined up. Like, honestly, for our little scene, that EP was like Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
It came out, and we were like, oh, we need to like figure out how to play more than 4 chords, I think, because these guys are breathing down our necks. um, and you know, Eric from that band went on to, he's still producing and doing amazing stuff. Super creative guy. That's the first one that comes to mind. That was such a mind-blowing show. Let's see what came after that. And the fact that there were like board games on the wall, and they're like, and
Yeah.
I felt like I was hearing pet sounds for the first time or something like that. Another great show. I mean, Prince at the Oakland Coliseum, not a local band, but R.I.P.
Yeah.
Prince. One of my faves at the Oakland Coliseum was just incredible. And back when basketball was in Oakland, that was cool too. Let's see, what other shows? You tell me one now, and then that's gonna like ring my bell.
I mean, it's any show at the Fillmore for me is like epic. But
well,
yeah.
I was the nacho bitch.
Yeah, nacho.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 3 of us worked at the Fillmore for a number of years when we were either in high school or just out of high school before we started touring. So the Fillmore is definitely like our home base. I could name a ton of shows I saw at the Fillmore that blew my young mind. Oh man, like, well, let's see, what saw some great. Oh, AFI at the Fillmore blew my mind.
Nice.
That was my first time seeing them. After that, I went and saw them up in Petaluma, where they would always play, and in like their home setting. But yeah, them coming out of, I mean, they were like, you know, that was another like big kind of post Rancid and Green Day. That was like a big success story of like, whoa, did not see that like local skater hardcore band becoming like a national touring act.
Yeah.
That was neat. That was very inspiring. I remember seeing Davey Havoc walk across people's hands in that room, and I had never seen that. And so like I've since copied that in that very same room, the Davey move. What else was, I think probably the night after AFI, Snoop Dogg played at the Fillmore, and I also was working that show. That was amazing.
Nice.
There was just constantly, there was so much insane music coming through there, and like some of it I was like, I knew about, but a lot of it I didn't. And like just like seeing like Fela Kuti and like and like Bella Fleck and like to like weird like noise bands like Mogwai and stuff, just like bands that I would have otherwise not heard of, I was seeing. And like as soon as the main band would go on, like we'd sell our last nacho. Once the headliner's on, nobody's coming upstairs to buy things, and so we would just get to stand in the balcony outside of the kitchen and watch the entire show. So we had like the best seats. Sound is so good in that room, and we just saw some amazing shows. There's this woman named Emiliana Torini that blew my mind there. She was like kind of she wasn't as big as Bjork, but she was kind of like a Bjorkish Italian singer. She's so good. All kinds of. That's kind of when I started listening to more than just punk rock, was kind of because of working that job at the Fillmore and just seeing all these different acts every night and being like, whoa, you know, like at the point that almost any musician is touring for a living, their way of life is like what I considered pretty punk rock. And like what happens on stage with like the connections that happen with audiences, like I'm like, oh, like I thought as a kid, I thought that was unique to just punk rock, but like there's a lot of music that's like that's just sort of on the bleeding edge of art and community, and I just saw some great stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I know a lot of bands have have kind of said the Fillmore also is a kind of a breaking point for them, where they're like, okay, I know like Andrew McMahon is one that's said, okay, his first, shows are up at the Fillmore, their first tour or what have you, took him up there, and he's like, this is where he knew, it's what he wanted to do. So, it's, I mean, there's just so much history in that room that it's just an energy. It's incredible. And the apples, I mean, the apples, I don't know what they put in the apples, but the apples are amazing,
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
I lived off of those free apples for
about
a year.
Hey, it's healthy. It's good, right? It's better than
I would just fill my backpack when I walked out of there.
I definitely didn't just have one, and have one on the way in, and you take one for the way out or something too, right?
Great. It's pretty great.
Drive home, from the venue, but it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Shawn. Really appreciate it. And you're allowed to say no to this next part, but because you said you had a guitar at your feet, if you wanted to play a song, I wouldn't say no to it. But
sure, let's do it.
Awesome.
All right, let's see. Any particular song?
Sick Little Suicide.
Let's see if I can.
Still, I don't believe it will take that far. Those things will put you back in the paycheck, set you back about a year or two. There's a sick little suicide in all that we do. It's all that we do. And the ground downtown is a countdown. Nowhere, anywhere in the area. Suck back these take-home packs of euthanasia. You think America? Suddenly subsistence is suicide. Exercise and malnutrition keep curves tight, but all that matters is what's inside. Outside is over. So says every magazine cover that gallantly is on our own women and children. But it's not my fault, it's never my fault. And the ground downtown is a countdown. Nowhere, anywhere in the area. These take-home packs of euthanasia. You've been America. There's a sick little suicide in all that we do. There's a sick little suicide in all that we do. You decide which one's for you.
It's pretty much guitar solo to the end, so.
Oh, that was amazing. Oh, Shawn, that was so cool.
I don't think I've ever played that without the other guys. It's such a John DeVoto centric song. Felt weird not having that.
I know, but it was brilliant. I mean, I know you had your eyes closed for a good portion of it, but just fanboying over here.
I was trying to read the words off the back of my eyelids. It's hard to see.
You gotta pull it out, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just, I played this enough times where I could.
So hopefully this comes back. All right. Yeah.
Oh, it was brilliant, and obviously, it goes without saying, but yeah, your band was one of the bands that I grew up on as well, and so I want to thank you for bringing great music to the Bay Area and making your mark through iMusicast, through everything that you guys did, and I'm glad you're doing well yourself. I mean, with your current career and everything, it's just amazing. So
Oh, thank you, man. I have so much love for this place. I'm really glad to be back in the Bay Area. It's there's so many creative people here. So yeah, it's good to be back.
yeah, well, good to have you back here in the area, and hopefully here we can get concerts back, and get some live shows going, and I miss concerts like nobody's business, man.
I know.
So,
That right there is the closest we've gotten in a minute. That's weird.
Yeah. It works. I did this show. I've been doing this show for over 6 years, and I used to do it as a TV show back in the day and everything, but we'd interview whoever's coming through the Bay Area and everything, big bands, small bands, whoever's interesting, right? And obviously it looks a little different now, but still getting to have these great conversations, and this sort of thing. Getting to hear about your storied career and everything, and just after I've been kind of been an outsider as part of it, just I love it. So thank you. I'm just saying thank you is all I can
Right
say.
on. Thank you, Steve. That was a really fun conversation.
Yeah. That was the interview with Shawn Harris of the Matches here on Concert Pipeline. And Jens, that takes us to the final segment of the program. What is it?
Well, Steve, it's time for some music news.
That's right. Yes, we each have a couple of stories we're going to share, and it's a big one in the music world today. The music world is shook by a loss of a legend, and so we're going to talk about that. So that is Eddie Van Halen. He died at age 65, and 65 may seem young, but he lived a heavy life.
He did. Yeah, he did, dude. I am still processing it like a lot of other people are, I'm sure. I was doing whatever it was at work, and then I don't remember exactly how I found out. It wasn't through work. Nobody at work said it, but I don't know. I think I checked my phone, and then boom, there was a message. I'm like, no freaking way. But work was so busy, I didn't have time to really think about it or read about it. So let's talk about it, dude. What a huge loss for the music community.
Yeah. So he's been in poor health for years, and he died at age 65, like I said, due to throat cancer. His death was confirmed by his son, Wolfgang Van Halen, on Twitter. He didn't say when his father died. He said, he was the best father I could ever ask for. Every moment I've shared with him on and off the stage was a gift. Eddie Van Halen, who had emigrated from the Netherlands as a child, emerged from Pasadena with what seemed like a natural understanding of what the rock world needed. There's very little information regarding the death at this point, but we're reveling. Van Halen. There's no Van Halen without Eddie, right? So
right. Yeah, and we have, we've talked about Eddie, off and on the pod for years, and we've wondered, about future tours and stuff, and it's just fucking hell. Like, it's one of those things where it just makes you angry, not at Eddie, but just at, cancer fucking sucks, and it affects so many different people, and it's another one of those things where it's like, God fucking damn it, why didn't I go to that concert a long time ago, and I didn't buy the tickets because it was too goddamn cheap, and now you miss out.
Yeah, and there are the different eras of Van Halen, of course. There's the Sammy era, there's the David Lee Roth
Right.
era, and
Right.
both completely different. You know, a lot of people look at those
Mhm.
as different bands.
Mhm.
Also, I mean, because they have totally different tunes. And I mean, I heard an interview with David Lee Roth where he was talking about, I mean, like his songs are like "Run with the Devil," where Sammy Hagar's, are on top of the world and that sort of
Mm.
thing. It's just completely different, but it's still
Yeah.
Van Halen, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, our thoughts
Yeah.
are with his family.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, man. Well, we'll report more when we have more to say. Let me talk about Sammy. Would be a good segue to go into. So, Sammy Hagar is to stream a birthday bash event. So this is the story. So Sammy has revealed the plans for this year's installment of his annual birthday bash. The former Van Halen frontman is changing things up for the 2020 installment, according to Brave Worlds. So, Hagar usually hosts the bash at Cabo Wabo Cantino in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. I've been there, but I don't remember exactly that place. Anyway,
Probably had a couple of margaritas and Mai Tais on the beach.
yeah, I probably just slept on the beach, passed out. The only thing I remember about that is, all the locals walking by asking me if I wanted to buy pot. And I was like, no, that's okay. And they're like, oh, you like the hard stuff, man. You want Coke? No, I'm good. Bye. Okay, anyway, so but this year he will be staging the event at Catalina Island off the coast of Southern California, and we'll be streaming it. So the birthday bash will be filmed in October, specifically the 8th, which was when? What day is it? Was that tomorrow? When? I don't know
Today's
what
the
day it is.
6th, so
I don't
that
know what the
we're
fuck it is.
recording this, and yeah.
Yeah, so very soon. And will be available to stream as pay-per-view event on Saturday, October 17th. So it's going to feature Sammy jamming with a super group, The Circle. You want to know how my mind works? My mind is so random, dude. I just wanted to naturally say his super group, The Circle Jerks.
Jesus. You just added the jerks in
I
there,
just
did you?
added that. Yeah, I just added that. I don't know why. I just figured that, he would just call the band The Circle Jerks. But anyway, ignore me.
It seems fitting.
So super group, The Circle, and special guests. Yeah, which maybe the special guests are the jerks. Sammy had this to say: I have been trying to make the birthday bash available to anyone and everyone for over 20 years. The way I see this unbelievable gift under the dark cloud of COVID-19 is we all had to roll up our sleeves, put on our thinking caps, and this beautiful exotic island sitting right in front of us and right in front of our faces gave us the thumbs up. It's going to be hard to beat the parties we've thrown for nearly 30 years in Cabo, but I have a good feeling about this birthday bash. Come join the party. For the first time, we'll all get to be there. It's coming via pay-per-view from the beach to your house.
Sounds like it'll be a great time for all, and lots of Sammy fans will be able to enjoy. So
seriously, yeah. I mean, what a nice thing for Sammy fans to look forward to.
Yes. So Jens, my next story is regarding AC/DC. And we've been talking about this, and the news is trickling out. We talked last week about. I think we talked last week about what? No, maybe I heard it on the radio actually. So that might not have been Concert Pipeline.
Maybe you dreamt about it, dude.
I might have.
You should fact check this.
We'll fact check it, right? But they're teasing fans by rolling out a little information, bit by bit, and so they're teasing their new album that's going to be coming out next month. It's called Power Up, PWR/up, and the photograph, and that included the teaser included a photograph with original lead guitarist Angus Young, for frontman Brian Johnson, which is interesting, right?
Yes,
because
very much so.
As we've talked about over the past couple of years, his hearing is a big problem and why he can't perform live anymore. But they're including him. Drummer Phil Rudd, which also may be a problem because I think there was some jail issues there, with Phil Rudd. Bass player Cliff Williams, and along with rhythm guitarist Steve Young, or Stevie Young, I think he goes by, but to not be confused with the football player. But he's no longer playing football. But yeah. And so Johnson was forced to pull out of the band's rocker bus tour over the rise of suffering permanent hearing loss, was replaced on the track by Guns N' Roses frontman Axl Rose. So this doesn't mention Axl Rose in any way. Rudd was removed from the band after he was convicted of criminal charges and sentenced to home detention in New Zealand back in 2015. The band recruited former drummer Chris Slade to play on the rocker bus tour. And then bassist Cliff Williams shared his intention to retire following the tour. But now the lineup, including Stephen Young, who has replaced the late Malcolm Young, are back together. And so they subsequently just announced the album that's coming out next month. Like I said, November 13th. And fans, we're going to get a taste of it with a single that's coming out after the recording, like a few hours after the recording of this episode. So we're not able to share that as part of the pod. But the first single is called "Shot in the Dark," and yeah, you could check that out online, of course, anywhere at the point of this pod's airing.
Awesome, dude. You share stories like this, and the part of me, is just kind of sad. I'm like, man, some of these people had some pretty awesome lives. I mean, they've had some like really exciting lives. They've like been in jail, or they've got all these cool stories and stuff, and it's like, I haven't done any of that. I don't have.
You want to go to jail?
Yeah, I don't want to go to jail. No, I don't want to go to jail. I just want to have good stories, but I can't help it that I was.
You got a puppy. Your life is fully enriched.
Yay! Now. Cool. Billions of people have puppies. I'm just like, why was I so conservative in life? I guess is what I'm saying. I think I didn't take enough risks.
You're acting like life is over and you're on your deathbed.
I know. No. It's definitely not. I definitely have lots of years in the future to somehow end up in jail. But no, I get a little bit envious, I think. And I think part of it is because somehow I was tragically born with no rhythm. See, I can't sing. I can't play anything. I've tried. And it's like, no, this is not my thing. No matter how much I want it to be my thing, it's just not my thing. I just can't do it. It's like one of those things. You're fired. You go somewhere else to use whatever your strengths are. That's the kind of type of guy I am.
Well, I look forward to hearing about the adventures of Jens ending up in jail in the future, just because he wanted to give it a go.
I know. I might have to what's the word? I might have to pawn off my puppy just to pay for the the bail. Okay.
Well, I'll be so proud of you. So.
Okay, dude. I got a story.
What you got?
All right. Alanis Morissette.
She's ironic.
Yeah, she's ironic, and she had this jagged little pill thing. And guess what? The cast is gonna host.
The cast of what?
Jagged Little Pill. Like
the CD, or you're missing a detail, I guess, is what
you know what I'm just telling you that Alanis's Jagged Little Pill cast is going to host a Biden fundraiser. I'm sure you've got questions.
I do have questions.
Just be patient, dude, because the answers are coming.
I can't wait. I'm
right?
answer my
yeah. Like, don't rush it.
No, I wouldn't.
You got to wait for the drama to build up here, right? Okay. All right. So there's a ticketed live stream that's going to benefit the Biden Victory Fund for the Democratic candidate. Before I even continue, I even wonder if this stuff is necessary, because it just seems like, the president is burning himself, into nothingness. Like, why
nothing is a sure thing, though. That's the scary part, is that nothing is a sure thing, and everybody needs to get out and vote. And a lot of Democrats are lazy and don't do it. And you gotta do it.
They gotta. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so Alanis and the cast of Jagged Little Pill, like I said, will be hosting a fundraiser for blah, blah, blah. This is going to happen very soon. The fundraiser is going to be Vitamin Victory Fund, will be held on blah, 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 and it'll feature performances, conversations, and messages from special surprise guests. Tickets are going to be available for $25 at bit.ly/JLP for Biden. All right, do you guys write that down? Okay.
Everybody
You're gonna have to
it, yes.
rewind that shit if you didn't have a pen or didn't have your phone ready. So further contribution levels include supporter for $25, advocate for $100, sponsor for $250, champion for $1,000, and co-host $10,000, which includes a virtual meet and greet with the cast of Jagged Little Pill. And I know you're gonna ask me like, well, who's the cast of Jagged Little Pill?
Who's the cast of Jagged Little Pill?
Shut up and just like, yeah, I knew you were gonna ask it. Just chill, dude. We're getting there.
Who is it?
So, quote, I couldn't be happier to express my passion for oh God, this isn't even someone's name. Why do I not know this? Conscionable? Dude, what is that? Anyway, something leadership in America with our Jagged Little Pill Broadway team, Morissette said in a statement. Each person within this musical is a force of nature and activism in their own right, and I'm thrilled to come together to support true democracy and political and relational grace with our JLP family. It's fucking Broadway, dude. Do you get it now?
I get it.
Are you
Yes,
glad
so
I,
you got to that
the
point.
end?
I'm so
To
glad.
finally tell you what that was.
I'm so glad. Well, thank you for getting there. I appreciate it, and yeah, hopefully it makes a
Good things
difference.
come to those who wait.
I was patient, and I was even patient as you tried to pronounce that big word. So
Yeah, I decided to skip it. But you know what? It's like watching a fireworks show, and you're just, you know, the grand finale is going to come, but you're just like waiting for it, and you're trying to enjoy the journey to the grand finale, but you really just want to see the grand finale, right? Okay, so in this case, in case I've lost you, we're talking about the fact that this was a Broadway play.
Fair. Thank you for that, Jens. I appreciate it.
You want me to read it over again?
No, you did great.
Okay.
No, we'll move on. I got one more story, Jens, and it involves a certain rock star. Any guesses at who this involved?
I'm going to say it is our friend David Grohl.
That is correct. Yes. So I don't think we hit this on the last episode. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
you just have to remember that, man. I got a puppy. I don't remember like 5 minutes ago.
You already forgot that you're about the puppy in the last episode, so I'm going to say we didn't hit it. But we've talked about the rock battle between Dave and Mandy Bushnell, the like 9-year-old girl from England, right?
Oh, right, dude. How could I forgot that? That was epic.
Yes. And so she had been teasing a song that she recorded for Dave Grohl. She went into an actual recording studio. She was so excited to get to go to the recording studio and record for a song that she made for Dave Grohl. And this battle is going back and forth. And it's just a further testament to why Dave is the most awesome dude, you know, because he's just like, he could be doing anything, but he's like, you know, entertaining this 9-year-old girl who is in true right badass, right? Like she is a freaking badass for her age, for any age. And you know, and this is brilliant. What do you have to say?
I think it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, when I think about when the first story first broke, she's the one that started it, right? She was like, okay, I'm going to do a Dave Grohl drum thing and see what happens. He then responded, right?
Yep.
So boom, like badass is happening already. So what you're just presenting, is that her, like it's now her turn and sending it back to him, but now she's going like recording studio.
Yep.
Like, this isn't just her behind her device or whatever, right?
No, they went to a recording studio, recorded this song, you know, and then put, you know, video up on, you know, her Instagram, of course, which, I mean, she has 750,000 followers at this point. She's verified. She's, you know, she's
That's
a real
amazing,
deal.
man. Can you imagine that? Let's just let that sink in. 3 250,000 followers.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Because she had the guts to put this out there and challenge him,
Yeah.
right?
And I don't know that she expected a response or anything, but
Right.
you know, it got to his attention, and just he's like, you know, this is pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Let's roll with this. And
Right.
so,
I mean, maybe she knew, maybe she was intuitive enough to know that, hey, yeah, maybe Dave Grohl will, send me a tweet or
right.
like me on TikTok or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
Boom.
Well, so like she said, so she made a song called Rock and Roll, the Epic Battle. And, and so she shared it on her Instagram. And so we're gonna hear just a little clip of it. Yeah, rock and roll will help me change the world.
Fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, and so so Dave Grohl, did reply to this. I mean, she had
already.
Well, yeah. So she had marked this as checkmate, right? She wrote, she's like, she marked it as checkmate, but then on Foo Fighters Instagram, they shared it, and he said, Nandy, I'm down, but I'm not out. Your epic song will definitely be hard to beat, but I think I know just what to do. ...
Nice.
So,
so there's more to come, right? Cliffhanger.
yeah, we may have something for the next week's pod.
Man, these two, you know what? This needs to end. Okay, number one, it shouldn't end, but it should get to a point where they meet each other, right? In a socially distanced fashion,
of course. Yeah.
But it's got to be like a venue, and they're on opposite sides of the stage, or however they want to do it, and they do something together. I mean, how awesome would that be for her?
Raise money for charity.
Yeah, raise money for charity, whatever charity they want to raise money for.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's a gift that keeps on giving, and it's a fun little COVID project, right? So
it is, and you know what? It just reminds me about how boring my life is, man. I should do something for someone. I need an Instagram account. Like, how do I get one?
I mean, you actually have one. You just don't use it, actually. So.
Do I have to know what my password is?
Probably not. Probably not. I don't think you posted in there in a couple of years. So it's good times. Well, that's our show, Jens. That takes us to the end.
It does. And, Steve, I've just got to put this out there again. Life gets crazy, super busy, but it's so, so important, not just for us, but for everybody to keep those connections, going. Keep those connections open. Yeah. Don't feel like isolated. Don't feel trapped. Don't feel like, oh my God, got to be responsible. Life moves on. True story.
And next weekends we have an artist named Riley Moore who's going to be on the program. So we have that to look forward to. The show continues on as well. And that's our show. So for all of us here at Concert Pipeline, that's Jens Schippel.
And that is Steve Jones Shows.
We will catch you next time. Later.